right, 4.4 part 2. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, if you log on to WebAssign and look at your WebAssign that's due Wednesday morning, you're going to say not nice words about me, and you should not do that. It's super long. I know it is. Instead of breaking it up into 2 parts, I just assigned the whole thing. So as soon as I'm done teaching, you have all of tonight. You have tomorrow in class to ask me questions, work on it. You have tomorrow night, get it done for homework. But if you wait until tomorrow night at 10 o'clock, you're going to be mad at yourself. It's long. I know it's long. Some of the questions are going to take you 2 seconds to do, and some of them are going to take a little longer. But it's the practice and the repetition that you guys need in order to get these concepts down. All right, this first part that we're talking about, it says the signs of trig functions in the 4 quadrants. Signs meaning positive, negative, not sign. All right, in each quadrant, the signs of the x and y value are different. Okay, I'm going to just refer to this second slide. If I look and I think about my x, y values in the first quadrant, my x and my y, if I was going to go somewhere from the origin and I wanted to end up in the first quadrant, both the x and the y are what kind of values?
Positive.
Positive, positive, all right? In the first quadrant, I want you to write the word A. This means all right? In the first quadrant, all of our trig functions are positive. Sine, cosine, tangent, and they're reciprocal. So cosecant, secant, and cotangent. In the first quadrant, they're all positive. All right, if I go to the second quadrant, what are the values of x and y, sign-wise, in the second quadrant? X is negative, y is positive. Whoops, I don't know why I wrote a y. Y is positive. In the second quadrant, I want you to write a big S. Okay, in the second quadrant, sine and its reciprocal, cosecant, are positive. The rest of our trig functions are what do you think?
Negative.
Negative, okay? So now we're going to go down to the third quadrant. In the third quadrant, my x value and my y are both negative. So we're going to write a big T here. Tangent and its reciprocal, which is cotangent, are positive. What do you think all the other trig functions are there? Negative, okay? Then we're going to go to quadrant 4. And in quadrant 4, my x and y, I have a positive x and a negative y, and I'm going to write a big C. That means cosine and its reciprocal secant are positive and everything else is negative. So you can remember the acronym however you want to. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. We always say, starting in the first quadrant, all students take calculus. All right, you'll have very, very basic questions, super straightforward, that say, tell me which angle or which quadrant the angle lies in. And you have to use this information. If you have a question like this, all right, this is a question that you might have on WebAssign that you'll definitely have on a test. If you have a question that looks just like this, it's going to say, name the quadrant that the angle lies in. It's either going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4. This is how you would show me work, and this is how you figure it out. All right, the first thing you're going to do is write down, all students take calculus. And then this question gives you 2 parameters. The first parameter or guideline you look at will eliminate 2 of the quadrants, and then the second guideline or parameter will eliminate another one, and then you'll find your answer. What I mean by that, this first guideline says cotangent of theta, so the cotangent of the angle, is greater than 0. So first identify, cotangent goes with what trig function? Tangent, correct? Cotangent and tangent, those are reciprocals of each other. If it's greater than 0, is it positive or negative? Positive. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my all students take calculus, and I'm going to cross off the quadrants that don't fit that criteria. So I'm looking where cotangent and tangent are positive. In the first quadrant, what do we know about all the trig functions?
Positive.
All positive. In the second quadrant, what's the only thing that's positive?
Sine.
And it's reciprocal, so it's not there. In the third quadrant, what do we know is positive?
Tangent and its reciprocal.
Okay, well, that could be there. And what do we know about the fourth quadrant?
That cosine and its reciprocal.
Cosine is reciprocal, so I know that the angle can't lie there. Now my second guideline says that sine is less than 0. So that means my sine is what? Negative or positive? Negative, okay? So let's go through the remaining things that we have. Is sine negative in the first quadrant?
No.
No, everything's positive. Is sine negative in the third quadrant?
Yes.
Yes. So this angle lies in quadrant 3. There's absolutely no math computation in these problems that we're doing right now. All it is determining the value of your trig functions in the different quadrants and figuring out where this angle lies. Questions?
Miss Meadows, how do we show our work for this? Like, just the way you did it right now?
Exactly what I just did. Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yep. All right, this next one. I changed it because I didn't realize I duplicated the same question. So change yours. All right, which quadrant does this angle lie in? So the first thing I'm going to do is say all students take calculus. So the first guideline, that's what I look at first. Don't worry about the second thing, look at the first one. It says cosine is greater than 0. So cosine, and it's reciprocal if you need to write it, greater than 0 means it's what kind of an answer, positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. So let's find where cosine is positive. In the first quadrant, is cosine positive? Yes. In the second quadrant, is cosine positive?
No.
No. In the third quadrant, is cosine positive?
No.
No. In the fourth quadrant, is cosine positive?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now I go to the second guideline or parameter, however you want to look at it. It says sine is less than 0. That means the sign is what? Negative or positive?
Negative.
Negative. So look at what you have left over. In the first quadrant, is sine negative? No.
No.
In the fourth quadrant, is sine negative?
Yeah.
Yes. So this angle lies in quadrant 4. Questions? We okay? Yeah? Okay. Moving along. All right. Now, these are the kinds of problems that you guys are going to be given on a test. You're going to have to think a little bit. All right. I'm not giving you an angle that's on the unit circle. I'm telling you that the cotangent of a given angle is negative 4/3. Now, guys, when I write this, cotangent of theta equals negative 4/3. Look where I put the negative. I put it out in front because just because right now it's with the 4 doesn't mean that the 4 is the negative value. You have to figure out which is the negative value. First of all, when I tell you cotangent, what am I giving you? What are you giving me? X, Y, and R. What is cotangent?
X over Y.
It's X over Y. So I know my X value is 4. I know my Y value is 3. I have to find the R, which we'll do in a second. But I have to figure out where that negative goes. Does it go with the 4 or does it go with the 3? So the way that we do that is exactly what we just did a second ago. All right. The first thing I'm going to look at is cotangent of theta is negative 4/3. That means your tangent and cotangent is what kind of a number? It's negative. So go around. In the first quadrant, is cotangent negative? No. In the second quadrant, is cotangent negative?
Yeah.
Yep. In the third quadrant, is cotangent negative?
No.
No. In the fourth quadrant, is cotangent negative?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So now I look at my second guideline. This says sine is greater than 0. That means we're looking where sine is positive. In the second quadrant, is your sine positive?
Yes.
Yes. In the fourth quadrant, is sine positive?
No.
No. So what you guys just figured out is the signs plus and minus of your X and your Y. In the second quadrant, what is the X value? Is it negative or positive?
Negative.
The X value is negative and the Y value is what?
Positive.
Positive. Now, some of you would say, well, the negative was in front of the 4 to begin with. Guys, just because the negative is out in front doesn't mean it automatically goes with the top number. So you have to figure that out. So to find R, We know how to do this now. 16 plus 9 equals r squared. 25 equals r squared. What's r equal?
5.
5. The rest of this, guys, we know how to do in our sleep. If I asked you for these 4 trig functions, sine is y over r, correct? Cosine is x over r. Secant is r over x. And cosecant is r over y. So using what we just figured out here, just by using logic, my sine is 3 over 5. My cosine is negative 4 over 5. My secant is 5 over what? Negative 4. And my cosecant is 5 over 3. So there's your answers. Now look what would have happened. Just say you guys did this and you mixed it up and you put the negative with the 3 and not with the 4. What does it do to all 4 of the answers to this question?
Makes them wrong.
Makes them all wrong. I cannot impress upon you enough how important it is to just pay attention to what you're doing. Carlos, question? Question?
Yeah, so like,
The question was, how did we get the negative on the 4? The first thing that it tells me is that the cotangent of theta, I'm going to just put the negative out in front here, is a negative value, right? So if I use my all students take cash, cotangent being negative, well, in the first quadrant, everything's positive, so it can't be there. In the second quadrant, the only thing positive is sine and it's reciprocal, so it might be there. In the third quadrant, tangent and cotangent are positive, so it can't be there. And then in the fourth quadrant, cosine is positive, so that means tangent and cotangent are negative. Then the second thing says right here that the sine is greater than 0, so that means the sine is positive. In the second quadrant, sine is positive. In the fourth quadrant, it's not. So I know that this angle theta is in the second quadrant. And when I think about the second quadrant, my x value is negative and my y value is positive. So I knew over here to put a negative with the x and a positive with the y.
Wait, can you explain how you...
Now we're going to take a little brain vacation.
I didn't catch one thing.
All right, guys, when we talk about reference angles, there's a couple things I want you to write down about reference angles. All right, reference angle is going to be an acute angle that's formed by the terminal side and the horizontal axis. I'll show you in a second what that means. But what you need to write down and keep in your mind that's very important, reference angles are always 2 things.
Acute,
which means what?
Small.
Less
Or
than
less
90.
than 90.
Uh-huh.
I should say.
It's okay. And positive. All right, there's different rules depending on where the angle is that's given to you on how you find the reference angle. But every time you find a reference angle, your answer should be acute, which is less than 90, and positive. So if the angle that you are given is in the first quadrant, if it's in quadrant 1, and they say theta is whatever theta is equal to the reference angle in quadrant 1. Because like if I said, okay, here's an angle and it's right here and this is 57 degrees. All right, your reference angle is formed by the terminal side, which is right here, and then a vertical line down to the horizontal axis. Is 57 acute and positive? Yes.
Yes.
So anytime they give you an angle and it's in the first quadrant and they ask for the reference angle, it's the same measurement. If the angle falls in quadrant 2, you will say 180 minus theta gives you your reference angle. If the angle given falls in quadrant 3, you say theta minus 180. It gives you your reference angle. And if they tell you that theta lies in quadrant 4, it's 360 minus theta will give you your reference angle. So the only 2 numbers that you have to subtract from or take a number subtracted from or subtract from itself is 180 and 360. 90 and 270 are not in here. This is really important for you guys to remember this little cheat sheet here for reference angles. All right, I'll show you how to do them. They're super easy, I promise. Guys, whatever we don't finish, I'll finish on the video and I'll upload it. And again, you have tomorrow in class to ask questions and stuff to go over it. But when I go here, hold on, Deanna, just follow along as we go and then I'll come back to it at the end. All right, if you have an angle in quadrant 2, do you guys see this angle right here? Your reference angle is drawn from the terminal side down to the horizontal axis. So this is your reference angle. That's why it's 180 minus theta. If you have an angle that's in the third quadrant, all the way around here, your reference angle is drawn from the terminal side to the x-axis, so it's right here. So it's going to be whatever that angle is minus 180. Same thing here. If you have an angle that's 300, or, between 270 and 360, your reference angle is drawn from this terminal side to the x-axis, so it's right there. So the easiest thing to do, these, you have a problem like this. They gave me theta is 300 degrees. If it's not in degrees, I'd put it in degrees first because it's easier. We think in degrees better. But 300, think about where 300 is, all right? If you need to do this every time. Draw yourself a little picture. Where does 300 fall? In between 0, 90, 90, 180, 180, 270, 270, 360.
270, 360.
It's over here somewhere, right? In the fourth quadrant. What's the rule for the fourth quadrant?
360 minus theta.
Quadrant 4 is 360 minus theta. So you guys would tell me 360 minus theta, which is 300. What is your reference angle?
60.
60 degrees.
60 degrees.
Check. Is that acute?
Yes.
Yes. Is it positive?
Yes.
Yes. You're good to go. This is how you can show me your work on a test or on WebAssign. Takes 2 seconds, but you guys can show that. All right, if I move over here, what's different about this?
It's a negative.
It's a negative, all right? When you start with a negative, the first thing you want to do is find the coterminal angle. How do we find coterminal angles?
Adding 180.
Not 180.
Oh, it's 360.
Add 360.
No, it's not 360.
If I said negative 135 plus 360, what does that give me? Positive what?
225.
Positive 225. Okay, so that's the angle that we're really looking at. If I draw a quick little picture, this is 0, 360, 90, 180, 270. Where does 225 fall?
180 to 270.
Between 180 and 270, somewhere over there. So it's in quadrant 3. What's the rule for quadrant 3?
Theta minus 180.
Theta minus 180. So I would say 225 minus 180, and I would get what?
45.
45 degrees. Is my reference angle acute? Yes. Is it positive? Yes. You're good to go. If you guys start off in radians, if they give you a radian degree, convert it to degrees, figure out what your reference angle is, and then convert it back to radians. If you guys get a problem and it starts with radians, your answer should be in radians. If you start with degrees, your answer should be in degrees. All right, so find the reference angle here. I'm starting off in radians. So what's the first thing I'm going to do?
Convert.
Let's convert. All right, so pi's cancel out. 3 goes into 180 how many times? 60?
60.
So 60 times 2 is 120. So 120 is the angle we're looking at. That's our theta. Now, what I'm doing is showing you how to show me work, guys. So this is 0, 360, 90, 180, 270. Where does 120 fall?
Quadrant 2.
In quadrant 2, somewhere over here. What is the rule for quadrant 2?
180 minus theta.
180 minus theta. So I have 180 minus 120, and I get what?
60.
60 degrees. Can I leave my answer like that for a test? Or can I put that in WebAssign? What did I start off in, guys?
No, because you said you had to
Yep.
end in radians.
You started in radians, so end up in radians. So just take a second to convert back. 60 goes into 180, how many times? 3? So your answer is pi over 3. If I look at the second one, I don't know where that is on the unit circle. So I'm going to go ahead and convert it real quick. So pi's cancel out. How many times does 6 go into 180?
30.
30. All right. What's 23 times 30?
It should be like 690.
Is it 690?
Might be 1,000. Wait.
So 690. You can draw this reference. You can draw this angle. I personally would subtract one whole circle just to make this a little easier on us. So if I subtract one whole circle minus 360, what does that give me? 330. All right, so think about where 330 is. What quadrant is 330 degrees? Good, quadrant 4. What's the rule for quadrant 4? 360
360
minus theta. So 360 minus 330 gives me how much? 30 degrees. My problem started off in what? Radians, so I just need to convert real quick. 30 times pi over 180. 30 goes into 180 6 times, so my reference angle is pi over 6. All right, there's a lot of words in the next couple slides. No worries, but you are going to have to use reference angles to evaluate trig functions, okay? That's what this is saying. To determine a trig function of any angle, you want to find the function value that's associated with the reference angle. So we're going to find the reference angle first, and then we're going to figure out the appropriate signs for my function value, meaning if it's in the third quadrant, my x and y are negative. If it's in the second quadrant, my x is negative, my y is positive. This is a chart that you guys have seen a million times. This all coordinates with stuff on the unit circle, so this will probably be helpful for you on some WebAssign questions. Right? Stuff on the unit circle, your x value is the cosine, your y value is the sine, that sort of thing. But this is going to be really important. A lot of you had trouble on this on your tests. All right? I told you had to have exact values for number 5 to find the x and the y. Some of you did a good job, some of you did not. You guys have seen this in geometry, you've seen it in algebra 2, some of you had college algebra, so you've seen it 2 to 3 times. You need to know the special right triangle patterns. In a 45, 45, 90, the legs, the pattern is 1, 1 for each leg, and then square root of 2 is across from the hypotenuse. In the matter of a 30, 60, 90, across from the 30 is 1, across from the hypotenuse is 2, and across from 60 is square root of 3. So if you're given a problem like this, the cosine of 4 pi over 3, all right, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to convert, and you can check your answer using the unit circle, but you're going to convert 4 pi over 3 to degrees. Okay, we're going to figure out what this angle is, then we're going to find the reference angle. This is how you guys need to work these problems out. So 4 pi over 3, I'm going to change that to degrees. Pi's cancel out, yes. 3 goes into 180, how many times? 60? 6 times 4, so the angle that I'm talking about is 240 degrees. So think about where 240 is. Where's 240? What quadrant?
3.
It's in the third quadrant. Okay, what's the rule for quadrant 3?
It's theta minus 180.
Theta minus 180, so it's 240 minus 180 gives me what?
No. No, sorry.
60, right? 60 degrees. So it's either going to be one of the special right triangles, a 45, 45, 90, or a 30, 60, 90. Which one is it now that I'm talking about?
The 30, 60,
30, 60, 90. So you can draw your 30, 60, 90 triangle however you want to. I'm just going to draw like this. We're going to talk. Your 60 is going to be right here. Think about what the pattern is for a 30, 60, 90. Across from 30 is what value?
Across from 30
1.
is 1.
Across from the hypotenuse, across from the right angle, your hypotenuse is 2. Across from the 60 is the square root of 3. Okay? Now, what quadrant did you tell me that this angle was in?
Quadrant
The third quadrant. So think about this. This is my x value, right? And this is my y. The horizontal is your x. We're going to figure that this is the origin. So your horizontal is the x value. Your vertical is the y, correct?
Yes.
So what are the signs in quadrant 3 for my x value and for my y?
They're both negative.
They're both negative. So if you wanted, what did they ask for this angle? Cosine? Right?
Yeah, because
So cosine of theta. Well, think about what cosine is. Is it x over r, y over r? What is it?
X over R.
X over r. So what is the cosine of this angle?
Negative half.
Negative 1/2. Good.
How are they?
Because where is the angle that we're talking about? It's in
Quadrant 3?
quadrant 3. Yep. If I drew this angle, it would be right here. The x value is negative and the y value is negative. This should be square root 3. So like if
What
you,
if it was
What?
tan instead of cosine?
okay, so if it was tangent, right? You have your x, y, and r. So if it was tangent of theta, that's a good question. Tangent is y over x, right? So the y value is negative root 3, and the x value is negative 1. So your tangent would be positive root 3. Very good question.
Okay.
Hmm?
Okay.
Yeah, good. So guys, if you come over here and they talk about the cosecant, I want the cosecant of this angle. Well, I don't know where that angle is. So let's go ahead. We're going to use our reference angles. We're going to convert this to degrees. So 4 goes into 180. How many times? 45? What's 45 times 11? 495 degrees, all right? I need to find the reference angle to this. Since it's above 360, I'm just going to go ahead and subtract a whole circle. Make my life a little easier. And I'm left with what? 135?
135.
Okay. Where is 135?
In the second quadrant.
90, 180, 270, right? It's over here, second quadrant. It's in quadrant 2. What's the rule for quadrant 2?
It's 180 minus theta.
180 minus theta. So I have 180 minus 135 is what?
35.
45 degrees. So I'm going to just draw a quick little right triangle. 45, 45, 90. What's the pattern for a 45, 45, 90?
1, 1, root 2.
1, 1, square root of 2. Now, since, Deanna, we're in the second quadrant, let's think about what our signs are. In the second quadrant, what's my x value and what's my y value?
X is negative.
X is negative, right? And y is positive. So my x value is the horizontal line, and my y value is the vertical line. So now they're asking me for the cosecant of this angle. Well, what is cosecant? For x, y, and r.
That
Goes with sine, right? So sine is y over r. So what's cosecant? R.
hypotenuse over opposite.
It's r over y. Right? This is my y value. This is my x value. This is my r. So my cosecant is the square root of 2 over 1. So it's just the square root of 2. Like if I'm given here negative 210. Well, guys, I don't want to work with a negative angle. You can go opposite around the the unit circle, or just find the coterminal. How would I find a coterminal angle to negative 210?
Add 360.
Add 360. Good. So what's negative 210 plus 360?
150.
150. All right, so now let's do our math here. Where's 150? Quadrant 2,
Quadrant
right?
2, so-
Okay, so what's the rule for quadrant 2?
So it's 180 minus theta.
180 minus theta. So I have 180 minus 150 gives me what?
30 degrees.
Okay, so let's draw a little angle here, a little triangle. You guys can draw it however you want. Put the 30 wherever you want. Doesn't matter. It just matters that you get the pattern right around your triangle. What goes across from the 30 in your pattern? 1. What goes across from the hypotenuse? 2. What goes across from 60? Square root of 3.
Root 3.
Okay, so think about this. Our hypotenuse is always r. The horizontal line is always our x, and the vertical line is our y. So think about it. If I'm in quadrant 2, what are the signs in quadrant 2? X is what?
Negative, positive.
X is negative, y is positive. So x is negative and y is positive. So now that I have all that labeled, I want to know the tangent. So the tangent of this angle, theta, tangent is, remember, y over x, correct? What's the
Yes.
y value?
The y value is 1.
1. What's the x value?
Negative root 3.
Negative
I gotta
root 3.
rationalize.
For WebAssign, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
For Miss Meadows, is that okay?
No.
No.
Nope. So we're going to multiply top and bottom by root 3. And I end up with root 3 over 3, right? And it's negative. Put the negative wherever you want. Doesn't matter. Look, your WebAssign is due Wednesday morning. If you pull it up right now, it's 40 questions. And some of them have multiple answer blanks. But you guys really need to practice this. This is a lot of information that's brand new to you. So work on it tonight. Come in tomorrow and say, okay, I have no idea how to do this. I kind of understood this. I'm totally fine with everything else. Whatever you guys need, tomorrow's class period is dedicated to asking questions over this stuff, all right? I'll upload this video as soon as we're done.